learners and listeners, welcome to the Indira Gandhi National Open University. Today's topic is Enumeration of Women's Work. This topic is part of the course BGSC 001. I am Dr. G. Uma, faculty in the School of Gender and Development Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. Welcome to this session. Let me introduce this topic, Enumeration of Women's Work. First, we need to understand the workforce composition. The workforce structure of India can be categorized under three segments. That is workforce composition. First, we need to, before we understand the enumeration of women's work, let me first explain workforce composition. Workforce structure of India can be categorized under three segments. First is the elite white collar workers, that is they are very elite white collar workers like a senior public sector officials and the managerial class of the private sector, accounting for not more than 1% of the labor force. Job security and social security provisions for this category are part of their work contracts. While at the other extreme are the workers such as the self-employed, the informal sector workers and casual laborers, accounting for 92 to 93% of the total labor force. There exist only a minimal social security provisions for this lot. It is this 93% of the workforce where the concentration of women workers is the maximum, and those who are outside the gambit of labor laws and social security. These 93% are mostly they are outside the gambit of labor laws and social security. In between these two categories are the regular wage employees of the public sector and the organized private sector, which account for about 6 to 7% of the labor force. The bulk of the government legislations for labor market and social insurance schemes concern this particular group. As far as India is concerned, we estimate the workforce based on National Sample Survey Organization and Census of India. First, let me explain about the Census of India. The decennial census conducted by the Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India provides the data on various characteristics of labor force once in every 10 years for the entire country under various demographic, social, economic characteristics. The data so collected on workers are tabulated as main workers and marginal workers. The work participation rate, that is WPR, is defined as the percentage of workers to the total population, which is 39.3% as per the 2001 census. The work participation rate in 1991 census was 37.5%. The work participation rate according to Census of India 2001. The most significant improvement is seen in case of rural marginal workers, which improved from 0.7% in 1991 to 7.1% in the year 2001 for males and from 8.1% to 14% in case of females during the corresponding period. In fact, there is a percentile decline in the proportion of main workers between 1991 to 2001 from 34.1% in 1991 to 30.5% in 2001. The sharp fall in percentage of main workers comes from rural areas, especially rural males, which drops to 44.5% in 2001 to 51.8% in 1991. This indicates that the agricultural activities are not providing sufficient job opportunities, forcing the families to migrate and seeking job opportunities in home-based activities. A comparison of work participation rate as per the Census of India 2001 is made with the work participation rate estimated on the basis of sample survey organization in India. We see that the national level, the difference between the two sets of returns is marginal. First, I have explained about the census of India. Let us see what National Sample Survey Organization talks about the work participation rate in India. Data collected through the National Sample Survey Organization, that is NSSO, gives information related to certain key parameters of employment and unemployment in its surveys annually and through a comprehensive survey on employment and unemployment quinquennially. It brings out a number of reports based on these surveys. Important national sample survey rounds like 55th round, 56th round and the 61 round gives detailed information related to workers. According to 55th round of National Sample Survey covered the agricultural and non-agricultural enterprises during July 1999 to June 2000. It identified and subsequently estimated the magnitude of both formal and informal workers in the country. The 56th round of National Sample Survey Organization data provided an in-depth view of the unorganized manufacturing sector under various heads. The 56th round was conducted between July 2000 and June 2001, which covered the unorganized manufacturing enterprise as a follow-up of 4th economic census held during 1998. The 61st round discusses the employment and unemployment situation in India in 2004 to 2005. It shows the large gap in terms of employment between the men and women, both in the rural as well as urban areas. The gap in the urban areas is extremely high, with 57% men and only 18% women being employed. The women in the urban areas are mostly observed by the informal economy and remain unaccounted. A study of the NSSO data on the basis of the 55th and 56th rounds revealed that the total employment in the country increased from 374 million in 1993 to 94 to 397 million to 1999 to 2000, based on the usual principal and subsidiary status. Out of these, around 28 million, that is 7%, are the organized sector, and the balanced 369 million, that is 93%, are in the unorganized sector. Workforce within unorganized manufacturing sector has been classified by the National Sample Survey Organization on the basis of type of employment into the three categories. This is own account manufacturing enterprises, that is household enterprises not employing hired worker on fairly regular basis. Here one person manages the entire process from production to marketing. Next one is the non-directory manufacturing enterprises, small establishments employing workers not exceeding 5 in number, which include household members. Next one is the directory manufacturing enterprise, top layer of establishments employing 6 or more workers including household members. Women in informal economy. So far we have talked about how the workers and others have enumerated by the Census of India and National Sample Survey Organization. Let us see the women in informal economy. Majority of the women workforce is engaged in the unorganized sector, where labor laws are not only flouted, but the work conditions are fixed by the employer according to their whims and wishes. The salaries are below the prescribed norm. There are no leave or medical benefits or compensation. Out of the total women workforce, the share in the organized sector is only 4.2%, while the rest of the 95.8% are in the unorganized sector, where there are no legislative safeguards even to claim either minimum or equal wages at par with their male counterparts, leave alone the other benefits that the women from the organized sector enjoy. The importance of this sector can very well be judged from the study conducted by the National Commission of Labour, which estimated almost 60% of the national income and 60% of the home savings are contributed by the unorganized sector. According to estimates in India, the contribution of informal sector to India's export is roughly 40%. Women in manufacturing sector. Among the workers engaged in the unorganized sector, the large proportion of the women workers are engaged in the unorganized manufacturing sector. The predominant share of the unorganized manufacturing enterprises has been brought to light with the 56th round of National Sample Survey Organization results. Accordingly, unorganized sector enterprises accounted for 98.19%, which forms a major chunk in terms of number of enterprises. This was brought by the National Sample Survey Organization 2000 to 2001. According to the report of the National Commission of Labour, ILABUT, published in 1988, the laws and statutes cater mainly, if not solely, to the organized sector, which accounts only for less than 10% of the workforce. The remaining 90 to 93% is today outside the coverage of social security system, is more vulnerable and therefore more in need of social security entitlements. In a patriarchal society like in India, the women have no means to address their economic and criminal grievances, which requires tremendous effort, resources and time. The most important issue in majority of the labor laws has been the establishment and existence of employer-employee relationship and the need to identify who is the concerned employer. Often, it is hard to identify who the actual employer is. On the other hand, most of estimating women's work, self-employed women are supposed to be their own employers. That is, one woman is responsible from production to marketing. For example, activities like puppet making, pickle making, lace making, embroidery, jardosi work and so on are usually undertaken by single women. Estimating women's work has been one of the most complex exercises before the estimators of labor statistics. The discussion above shows whatever we have discussed so far. It clearly shows that how women have had to come forward to shoulder economic responsibility and became the shock observers for the family. This is the result of globalization, which has seeped into the homes, making many of the men redundant and jobless. Outsourcing and contractual labor seems to have become in vogue, converting the formal labor into informal activity. The informal labor does not have formal employer relationship and hence do not fall under the purview of labor laws. More than 90% of the women workers are in the informal economy and get exploited and marginalized. See, we have discussed about how the work is enumerated, who are all working, which are the sectors. Certainly, we come to know that the most of the women, they work in the informal sector. See, if you go and visit the garment unit, or if you go and visit the small units in nearby place, you will come to know that most of this unorganized sector, they established as a small unit, they try to employ the women workers in those units. Like reasons, we must understand the reasons for employing the women workers in those units. Not only here, in many places, for example, in some areas. Specifically, if you go to the textile hubs in India, if you go and visit those textile hubs, you will understand that most of these textile hubs, more than 90% of the women workers, they work. These workers are outsourced and they are the contractual laborers, and it is not possible for them to unionize. Most of these women workers, they work for long hours. At least they used to reach at the 8 o'clock until every day they try to work from minimum 12 hours, 12 to 14 hours they used to work, and rarely they get a break for their any personal purposes. Maybe sometimes even they get a break for half an hour. They basically, here we need to understand that the reason for employing large percentage of these women in the informal sector, first thing is that the existing assumption and the existing patriarchal relations and socialization process clearly states that the women workers, they don't unionized by themselves. That is the first reason the women are employed in a large percentage in the informal sector. Second one is that rarely they get any social security measures. Even if they get social security measures also, most of the women, it is not possible for them to avail. Second thing is that if you look at how this entire economy operate in the globalization, means basically the globalization or in neoliberal economic policies, where mostly the entire economic activities are controlled and regularized by the market. For example, if the market is working very well and the economy grows at the faster rate, then automatically the market could be able to generate more employment opportunities. Whenever there is a no need for employment opportunities, and if there is a not much consumption in the market, then automatically the employment opportunities will fall down. Whenever there is a lack of employment opportunities due to the existing assumptions, women are the first one to lose their jobs, because the socialization process clearly stated in the countries like in India and most of the South Asian and Asian countries that male are the breadwinners, the women they're supposed to do the caring activities. So whenever the women are considered as a reserved army. So when the market needs the women for the production activities, they could be able to observe the women, and if the market is not able to provide enough opportunities for the women are the first one to lose the jobs. So here, not only even if they work for long hours, it is not possible for the women to get unionized, and it is not possible for the women to claim any social security measures. That is the second thing. Third thing is that women, they expect to work for a long hours, and that may affect the health of the women. Even if their health is affected, they may lose the jobs, but they don't get any social security measures. In this scenario, as a learner and listener, one must think that how to improve the conditions of the women. The existing assumption is that most of the time, first the feminist economists, they clearly pointed out that the women, they do contribute for the subsistence economy, but whatever their contribution, it is not recognized and it is not valued. That the feminists raised. So for recognizing the women's activities, for giving value to the women's activities, they have developed certain statistical tools and methods to include. From 1991 census onwards, the government of India including the women's activities as part of the data collection process. But even though the work, whatever the women they contribute, even though we started recognizing, second existing assumption is that okay, the women are contributing, the society is recognizing women's work, but again we think that the prime responsibility for the women is to caring activities, caring of the children, that is the reproductive activities. The feminists, they clearly divided the women's activities into productive, reproductive and socially and politically responsible activities. What are the reproductive activities? Not only bearing the children, rearing of the children, taking care of the elders, taking care of the other domesticated animals, and the whatever activities supposed to be carried out for the welfare of the entire family members in the domestic space, that is the reproductive activities. With regard to productive activities, the women, they do contribute for the subsistence economy, and the women, they do contribute for their agricultural activities. Not only they work as an wage labor, they could able to work in their other fields also. They in their own fields also they work, and they do contribute for the food security. Apart from productive and reproductive activities, the women, they do contribute, and they were part of the certain social responsibilities and political responsibilities. Even though the women, they could able to do this much activities, the society and other social institutions, they are not recognizing the women's contribution. That is the main reason that they rarely they became part of the formal employment. More than 90% of the women workers are in the informal economy. Even if they are part of the informal economy, they get marginalized and exploited to the core. This we need to understand this. So this entire lecture is prepared based on the unit Estimation of Women's Work in the course MWG 001, written by Mondira Datta. The course is the Women and Economy, published by Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. Hope you understood the estimation of women's work, that is the estimation of women's work, how it is estimated the women's work, that is called enumeration of women's work. Thank you so much for listening this lecture. We will again meet in some other lecture. Thank you.